One of the great things about Santa Barbara is its vast array of nonprofit organizations. Today we'll talk to the leaders of 3 of those organizations. Rich Block, CEO of the Santa Barbara Zoo, Geoff Green, CEO of the Santa Barbara City College Foundation, and Greg Gorga, Executive Director of the Santa Barbara Maritime Museum. I'm David Starkey, and this is Santa Barbara. We're here now with Rich Block, CEO of the Santa Barbara Zoo. Rich, it's great to have you here.
Well, thanks so much. I'm really thrilled to be able to be on.
I should say it's great for you to have us here because, as you can see behind us, we're sitting at the condor exhibit at the zoo.
And it turns out you picked absolutely my favorite spot in the entire zoo.
Tell me why this is one of your favorite spots in the zoo.
Well, you know, when I got here in 1998, I realized that we were really right in the heart of condor country. And it's not that far away to Fillmore, which is really the gateway to condors at Hopper Mountain National Wildlife Refuge, and just over the hill from that, Bitter Creek National Wildlife Refuge. And so when I saw the landscape out here, it just reminded me of work that I had done at the University of Michigan studying condors. And I thought, you know, the zoo needs to be part of this program. We need to get involved. And it took a few years to get things established, but in 2002, the zoo became a partner in the recovery effort. And when they brought us on board, the thing that was really exciting is they opened the possibility that we had actually build an exhibit right here at the Santa Barbara Zoo for California condors.
And what's amazing is that in the 1980s, there were 22 animals left on the planet. We're over 400 now. We've got 5 here, so we have...
Living in Santa Barbara, which
right,
is not a bad place to live if you're a condor. A little cooler here than their relatives that are just over at Bitter Creek and Hopper Mountain. But for us, for a zoo this size, it was a real milestone for us in our conservation program. And that's really where we built out. We established our work with California condors. We were able to open this exhibit in 2009, and it's just been a terrific experience for our staff, for the zoo, and I hope in turn for our visitors that get to come and enjoy these birds.
Well, before the cameras were rolling, you were telling me a lot about their personalities. They're a smart bird.
You know, they really are very intelligent. They study things, they mimic things, and so, you know, that cuts both ways. On one hand, that's great for survival and certainly dials them into what's going on around them in the environment. The downside of that for us is that they learn from each other.
Right.
And so if you have, as they would say, the one bad apple, if you've got a bird out there with really bad habits, other birds are going to watch that and mimic those. So that's one reason that we have 327. So when you look at the wing patches on these birds, this is how biologists would recognize them in the field and be able to identify them. So 327 was actually a bird that had been released into the Grand Canyon, developed some very bad habits of hanging out with people.
Getting fed.
And so she was pulled, and they put her in the equivalent of a 12-step program to try to teach her to stay away from people. And they tried again, they released her, and she went right back to locations with people. So worried, concerned that she would basically bring other birds to that, she was pulled, and so she is here at the Santa Barbara Zoo. But it's a great story because it really talks to the intelligence of these birds. But she's got a great story. I mean, this is a bird that was flying free over the Grand Canyon, and just through people not being aware of proper condor etiquette, ended up feeding her, and ended up, you know, forcing us to to pull her from the wild and bring her here, but it's a story that we can share with guests.
Well, you know, another story you were sharing with me earlier is when condor biologists, condor folks get together, they talk about these birds as though they're individual human beings. It's interesting that they don't have names, or yours don't, they're all numbers, and yet you look at them probably with more attention than we would at the average human being.
Well, it is interesting. At these meetings, when the field biologists get together, they may as well be names because the numbers are so well known to the people that are studying them. So if you think about the kind of the overall population of just over 400 birds, that's pretty much split between those birds that are in situations like here at the Santa Barbara Zoo, but an slightly larger number in the wild. And those wild populations are not, it's not one big group of birds. It's spread out. So there's the population that here would be called Central and Southern California population. There's a northern population that hits Big Sur and Pinnacles. There's an experimental population in Baja California, and a growing number and expanding in their area over in the Grand Canyon. And proposals on the table to introduce them to some other areas as well, especially in the very far northern parts of California.
Let me move it back to the zoo per se. I mean, you've been here since the late 90s?
Right, I came here in '98.
Okay. That's a long time.
Well, yeah, it's a lot longer than I thought I would be here. So it's
because you worked for the World Wildlife Federation. You were an engineer. You've done a lot of things in your life.
Well, I've had a lot of opportunities, and before we were talking about, you know, how do you make that transition into zoos, and there were two things that influenced that. One was as a grad student, my closest friend in grad school ended up getting a job right after he graduated at the Cincinnati Zoo. So I spent loads and loads of weekends every year at the Cincinnati Zoo with my friend Thane, and just doing crazy things at the zoo. But what it did, it kind of opened my eyes beyond what people normally think of a zoo. Yeah, exactly.
And entertainment and so forth.
So I saw what was happening at Cincinnati. I was very inspired by that. And so that at least kind of opened me up to the possibility that, you know, zoos might be a pretty neat place to work. And over time, and I mean, imagine that you know, that was back in the early 80s. Mm-hmm. The changes in zoos over the decades have been tremendous.
Some are unrecognizable from their
it's
previous incarnations.
It's so dramatic. So to have someone at a meeting that I'm at come up to me and learn that I'm at the zoo, and they'll say, you know, I just, when I was a kid, I just was so depressed when I went to the zoo. I've never been able to go back. And you know, they're in their 50s or their 60s, and it's like, wow, you should come back, because this is not your father's zoo, or you know, they are so dramatically different, and especially in the area of conservation.
Well, what else are you proud of at the Santa Barbara Zoo? You've been here for a while. You've done the place looks great. Let's face it. What I mean, maybe physical structure, but just what are some of the things that you would kind of take pride in over the years?
Well, certainly the conservation program is on the top of the list, but you know, the reason that the zoo has been successful is we have a remarkable team of people, and that doesn't happen by accident. I mean, just year after year after year, anytime there was an opportunity to bring someone on board, we invested a lot of time in getting exactly that right person. So even though it's not a facility, it's not a program, something like that, I think I'm really proud of our team.
Right up to the person, the volunteer who led me up to the condor exhibit, very knowledgeable, friendly. I mean, once you walk into the zoo, you get a sense that people are happy to see you.
And it's true. I mean, our team from the top to the bottom values our guests. Everyone that works here, no matter what their responsibility. So if it's maintaining the landscape or making sure facilities are clean, I think everybody understands that they contribute to the quality of the experience the guests have when they come here. And that's really what we're focused on, is to make sure that visit after visit, people can come and really have a great time. We want to get the annoyances out of the way so they can be inspired by the condors and the bald eagles and the gorillas and the giraffes and the lion. we want that message to be the one that comes through, and not I had to stand in line for a long time, or I met a really grumpy person at admissions and boy, they must be having a bad day because boy, they were grumpy. You know, we don't want that to interfere with the fact that they come in and get the wow factor from being able to get this close to a California condor.
Well, we've been talking about adults, we've been talking about conservation, but I think of zoos myself, this is an average person, as a place where I've taken my kids over the years, and you know, as they've grown up. Tell me a little bit about what the zoos offers children, and then I think we may have a special guest because I've heard that there's a problem.
Not a serious problem, I hope. Well, you know, we have kind of 4 pillars to. Oh my gosh! All right. I need to call somebody. We've got a turtle on the loose here.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if can we get to the 4 pillars quickly?
Well, he's got 4 legs. We'll do 4 pillars. So we have conservation, education, research, and recreation. Those are the 4 kind of pieces we stand on. And turtle actually represents 2 of those. One is certainly the recreational value of getting to meet a really fun character like this, and you will note that Turtle was nice enough to bring Chris along with him. Yeah. He always likes to have a companion. Sure. It works better for him and for us. But also he brings not only kind of a fun thing for families, but there's an educational message in this.
Well, now Turtle, aren't you nervous about being on camera here?
Oh no, I love cameras. You know, like I'm an actor. Did you know that? So I'm used to the spotlight. And actually that reminds me, like I'm used to pictures, so do you know what my favorite kind of picture is?
I have no idea.
Shelfie.
Shelfie.
Oh no, Turtle, don't start. If you get Turtle started, he won't stop telling jokes.
All right, well you said earlier this is kind of a pun crazy zoo. I don't know if that's a possibility for Turtle.
Oh yeah, it's a super place for puns, you know. And I'm the best. I have so many turtle jokes. Do you guys want to hear a joke?
Well, maybe one.
Oh, maybe one. Oh, okay. All right. Do you know what you get when you cross a turtle and a porcupine? Slow poke. Isn't that hilarious?
That's absolutely hilarious.
Oh no, Turtle. Don't start, man. Don't get him started.
Chris, let me talk to you for a second. Now, you are a student at Westmont.
Yes.
You're not an actor, though.
No, I'm not. I'm actually a computer science major.
Okay. And what inspired you to come out and work with Turtle?
I've always loved animals, and I was really looking for a place where I could be a part of something that's like important and get a nice change of pace from sitting behind a desk all day and trying to code.
Right.
And the zoo is like a wonderful place to do that. You get to do like awesome work, meet great people, and be a part of something that's just super, super cool.
Well, maybe Turtle could finish us off with one final joke, maybe one of his best.
Okay. All right. This one will be nice. It's not about a turtle. Do you know what happened to the frog's car? Do you know why he couldn't find it? It got towed. Get it? Towed. Oh, Turtle.
All right. Well, I want to say thank you to Turtle, and thank you to Chris.
Of course.
And thank you, Rich Block, for having us at the Santa Barbara.
Oh yeah, come back anytime. It's our pleasure.
Well, we will be back soon.
I hope so. Thanks, Turtle.
Oh, yeah.
Well, here now with Geoff Green, the CEO of the Santa Barbara City College Foundation. A lot of foundations in town, Geoff.
A lot of foundations, and a lot with the words Santa Barbara and foundation in them, so it's confusing.
And in fact, you were involved with another one for a long time.
I was with the Fund for Santa Barbara for almost 18 years, and of course worked with many other foundations, so found my way into the philanthropy world.
So that's a long time to be with one place. Tell me a little bit about what you did there and maybe how that transitions as you moved to City College.
Well, I started there in 1997, so I came to the community as a UCSB student, and I briefly left to pursue my dream job as a park ranger in Yosemite. But when I came back to the community in 1997, truly I asked around to some of my friends and mentors about what, you know me, what should I be doing, and how can I find a way to live and thrive in Santa Barbara, and no less than 3 people actually said to me, call up the Fund for Santa Barbara. So the first time I think I ignored it. The second time I thought, well, that's funny. By the third time I got the hint. And
well, what was it about you that they thought was such a great match for that particular place?
Well, I think I'm a generalist. I like to look at things in sort of the big picture. I like to see how the different pieces fit together and solve problems on that sort of macro level with the community. And some of the work I'd done previously when I was a student and some of the work I'd done just after I left UCSB all led back to this idea of working with an organization that saw the community in that way, through that lens of looking at problems from a holistic perspective and trying to figure out what is it that's missing and how do we move forward and solve them. And the fund has been since inception really the place where new ideas are launched. They're there to support progressive community-based organizing around problem solving. Right.
Well, I was going to say, well, what is missing in Santa Barbara and how do we solve it?
If I could answer that, we'd all be out of business.
Right.
It's really taking a look at the community and asking the question of whose voice isn't being heard, who's not at the table, what's missing from any particular decision-making process. And so a lot of what we did was support people to be advocates of buy-in for themselves. It was really about communities having the resources to do their own organizing. And the philosophy is that people know best what their own challenges are. But very often in the current model of how social services are delivered, in the model of how government works, it often becomes more of a top-down. Not always by design, but that's sort of the de facto result. And so the Fund for Santa Barbara was there to be a resource for people to step into those places and actually assert their understanding of the communities, the challenges, and offer their solutions.
When you think back on those times, what is the one success story that you remember best?
I don't know if it's cliche to say I can't just pick one, but I can't just pick one. I think there's a number of organizations where we were there from the beginning and helped to organize. The fund as a resource was both a funder and a technical assistance provider, and still is. And so organizations like COAST, the Coalition for Sustainable Transportation, taking people that knew their fields around sustainable transportation, getting them together to advocate for policy, to come up with creative ideas and experiments, and to be a voice for the community. That's a great success. It's still around. We did a lot around inclusion, diversity issues, working against whether you're talking about issues around race or class or gender or orientation. There was a lot around fair wages and compensation. This is a town and a lot around housing that has a lot of challenges around that. There's an incredibly steep wealth poverty curve in Santa Barbara.
Right. And
so anything that's going to address that was something we were interested in.
And as you're speaking as a faculty member at Santa Barbara City College, I know that those are issues that affect a lot of our students as they come here, try and succeed, try and transfer to a four-year school. How are you making that experience work for you here?
Well, to me, if you ask the question of what's missing when someone's faced with a particular challenge, whether it's an economic challenge, whether it's a family structure that's broken or struggling, very often the missing piece is access, and access to education in particular. So whether it's an economic barrier, whether it's a sort of a personal family culture barrier, someone who's the first in their family to attend college, whether it's just about making the time in a busy life where you're already taking care of and numerous other things. Oftentimes that first doorway to open up for you is incredibly important, and that makes all the difference. And for an enormous number of people, that's the community college system. I mean, right. California's community college system is the single largest higher education system in the United States.
2.2 million students every year.
Yeah, exactly.
Crazy.
Exactly.
Well, when you think about the specifics, the students, we have a lot of programs that you help support. I mean, there's books, there's scholarships. Talk about some of those particular activities.
Certainly. I mean, I think that the actual, to your prior question as well, the actual pathway for me from the fund, work at the fund to the work here with the SBCC Foundation there was a program that we funded through the Fund for Santa Barbara here at Santa Barbara City College, and it's the Transitions Program, which is one of the most innovative things I had seen. I was only somewhat familiar. I was a UC student, so I'd been in public higher ed in California. I had not attended Santa Barbara City College previously. And it was one of the most innovative things I'd seen. And this is taking people that were coming out of prison. So if you think, the conversation around the school to prison pipeline and how people get marginalized so early and on a track where they're not going to be expected to succeed or certainly not to pursue higher ed. And you take sort of the classic example of that would be someone who's incarcerated either as a youth or as an adult. This was actually taking that and reversing it. So the transitions program works with prisoners while they're still incarcerated and actually prepares them to enter college as soon as they're released. Sometimes with folks on probation, sometimes with people still serving time. And when I saw that and the success stories, and I met the leadership here at the college, that was incredibly powerful for me. And from that, I learned how that was just the tip of the iceberg. So the foundation assists the college really. We've got over a century of history with Santa Barbara City College, being an excellent, accessible higher education organization, and it's about $4 million a year right now that the foundation provides. And we often are the ones that fill that gap between the available public funding and what's actually needed to reach that that margin of excellence, which was the tagline for so long. And I still think it's a great way to describe what we do here. So that's really our role, is to find those places where the additional private investment can make all the difference. And we're the sole vehicle to do that for our community, our community college.
When I go on the website, sbccfoundation.org,
Yes.
Which is a great place for people who would like to donate to the foundation, and I see videos of specific students, that reminds me of how important it is for me as an English professor to think about specific people achieving things. So you can talk about success in these larger terms, but it's really that one or two or three people that you remember that kind of keep you going. Do you have a similar feeling, knowing a specific person who's succeeded because of things that you've done?
Yeah, I mean, certainly in my time in Santa, that's what keeps me engaged in community work, knowing that having a first-hand story, it makes it all the difference. Mm-hmm. We had an event not long ago that I could speak in generalities about, where we had invited some of our biggest supporters to the foundation to hear a little bit about what we've called our President's Circle for these last 35 years, which is sort of the donor circle that invests regularly with the foundation, and two students who are with the Spark program. Single parent students, and they were just telling their story. It was a very simple, this is my challenge, this is how these were the barriers for me, and this is how I found my way into college. And it's a program that both of them attested very, very clear terms. Without this level of support, it wasn't going to happen. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important to recognize that those stories are incredibly various. So it's not just someone with a tremendous number of barriers. For many people who have a variety of options. I mean, they could kind of go anywhere they wanted if they, as they so chose, and they still choose to come here first, and that's because of the excellent instruction. And there's no question that is an outstanding college. The faculty here are top notch, and that's measured against anywhere in the world, in my opinion. And it's affordable and it's accessible. So if you're trying to figure out where you're headed and you want to start somewhere close to home, this is a great place to do it. And I can tell you a story about my own UCSB experience, and I apologize to all my friends at UCSB. When I finally decided on my upper division concentration, and it was in biology. So I was heading in ecology and evolutionary biology. And
so you could be a ranger.
Exactly. And plant ecology was my particular interest. So I think there were 12 of us total by the time you get to that specificity in higher upper division. And of the 12, six members of our cohort had gone through Santa Barbara City College first, and 6 of us had gone straight through UCSB. And I have to say, the 6 that came to City College first were light years ahead of us. And that really struck me because, of course, I thought I was going to the premier college. How is this possible? And I realized that the difference is that for lower division in particular, the quality of the teaching, I mean, that's the sole focus of Santa Barbara City College. It's an educational institution, pure and simple. It's not a research university. Now, there's incredible advantages to a world-class research university like UCSB, but as you're starting to figure it out and as you're going along the path and deciding where you're headed,
it's nice to have someone whose sole purpose is to help you get there.
Exactly, and the accessibility of faculty, I think it's a really just an incredible place.
Well, it's been great talking to you. I'm going to sort of finish up by letting you make a pitch to all the viewers out there who might potentially to talk to the cameras. And it can be anything from a small one-time donation, which could help out with books, for instance, to the President's Circle, which I understand is 1,000 to 10,000 plus per year. So go ahead and talk to those folks.
Well, let me tell you all about it. It's the foundation, as I mentioned, raises about $4 million a year comes from the foundation to support various programs. So we support scholarships, book grants, to help people pay just the cost of their education. We support the programs of the college, especially those wraparound services and programs that don't have adequate state and public funding. We have a history of supporting capital needs and projects for the physical infrastructure of the college. And so the idea of the foundation is to fill that gap and allow private individuals and organizations and businesses to invest in this organization, this higher education. And the way we do that is through donations of all sizes. In a typical year, we may have 1,000, 1,200 donors, but they come at all levels. The beauty of it is that if you were to give $1 to the foundation just for its core existence, we turn that into $4 for the college, sometimes $5, depends on the year. But there's really a leveraging effect of how we work. And we have our President's Circle, which is actually the group that invests annually with the foundation. One of the quirks of the foundation and the unusual things about it, and this is a sort of, I think, a brilliant strategy that our founders created, was the foundation stands separate as a partner to the college. It's not actually a piece of the college. And so it allows us to be that partner out in the community and really talk to people about the value to them of what Santa Barbara City College offers. And so whether you're looking at work training, frankly, retraining mid-career, whether you're looking at someone coming out of high school and going into college for the first time or the second time, could be a second chance. And frankly, whether you're transferring to a four-year university or you're just coming here for a certification of some kind, or you're pursuing lifelong learning. The Center for Lifelong Learning, which we formerly knew as Adult Ed, was established to provide that ongoing learning to the community. And all these things are part of the college. So there's an incredible variety of ways that people can invest, and the foundation's here to be that vehicle.
And they can start right at sbccfoundation.org.
sbccfoundation.org, yes.
Geoff, it's been a great pleasure talking to you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
We're here now with Greg Gorga, the Executive Director of the Santa Barbara Maritime Museum. Thanks for having us.
Pleasure. Glad to have you here.
I mean, it's so exciting to be right here in the middle. Behind you, viewers can see this fantastic lighthouse, and maybe we should start off by that. It's kind of the centerpiece of the museum now, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's our flagship, but don't look behind you because there's a boat going to land on your head in a second. But yeah, the lighthouse lens is a first-order Fresnel lens. It came from Point Conception Lighthouse, right. Probably the most important spot on the West Coast. It's considered the graveyard of the Pacific, or the Cape Horn of the Pacific. So this lighthouse is very, very special. Right. It's a loan to us from the Coast Guard, and they picked us to have it. They wanted it here.
And why'd they pick Santa Barbara?
Well, because I think we have the venue for it, we get the visitation. It was in the middle of nowhere. Nobody used to see this lighthouse. It's surrounded by private property. So it's never been open to the public, and they needed to take it out of the lighthouse because they're transferring the property over to the Air Force. So they wanted us to have it. And it's 160 years old, built in Paris, 624 individual pieces of glass. Yeah. The glass is beautiful, and it was not that beautiful out there. It was neglected for 13 years. It was decommissioned in 1999 and set there for 13 plus years, and there's bird residue and acids that etched into the glass. But we had 3 of the country's 5 lampists. There are the 5 people that are designated to work on a Fresnel lens. They came out here and spent 2 weeks out at Point Conception taking it all apart, and 3 weeks right there where it is right now, cleaning it and putting it back together. And it is a work of art. I tell people it's a work of art, and it's the technology. Fresnel was a French physicist, engineer from the 1820s, and that technology that worked this lens is still in use today. So car brake light and headlight systems use it. Your eyeglasses use Fresnel technology. The B-2 bomber uses Fresnel technology. The Ronald Reagan aircraft carrier that we get out here uses that technology. Solar energy is using it, and of course even stage lighting is still called Fresnel lighting. So the technology is amazing.
Well, one of the things I love about talking to you, Greg, is how enthusiastic you are about this museum. For people who don't know how you got here, you're not a museum guy initially. Can you give us the short version of how you came to become the executive director?
Sure, yeah, I took a roundabout journey. I'm a writer. I was an English major in college, and so when I moved to Santa Barbara in 2001, I became a grant writer. It's my first nonprofit job. Grant writer for Community Action Commission. Wrote a lot of grants for them. I became their planning and development manager, and then I came to the Maritime Museum in 2007 as the director of development and because I had management experience. And there is actually, as still is today, a movement in the museum world to hire people from the hospitality industry, and because we do, a lot of those talents are cross transferable, and so I became the executive director in 2008.
Yeah, well, it's a great place. If people haven't been down here ever or in a while, they should come back, because since you've been here, it's a much lighter, brighter, kind of more exciting place, I think.
You know, we have been opening 6 to 12 exhibits a year, and so I tell people, if you haven't been here in a year, it's a lot of new exhibits. We get new art exhibits every 3 to 6 months, so that's constantly changing. We've been upgrading. You know, the museum was really tossed together pretty quickly to open its doors, and the people who did that did a great job, but it's time to change things. So we've slowly been going through a lot of the older exhibits and updating them, and you know, we've always wanted to be an interactive, hands-on museum, so we're constantly doing that. So like just last week, we got a new diving helmet exhibit where kids can lower a diving helmet, a hard hat diving helmet, on their head and get a picture taken. And it was built by Bob Kirby, who is literally the best-known diving helmet maker in the world in all-time history. So, so top-class builder of a children's diving helmet. So always something new here at the museum.
Well, and education is a big part of what you're excited about, right? I mean, tell me a little bit about some of the educational programs.
Sure, we hope that, you know, just going through the museum, you're going to learn a lot about our maritime history, because we are a maritime community. And I really love Santa Barbara because it's such a diverse maritime history. We cover everything from surfing, commercial diving, commercial fishing, shipwrecks, of course, and models. But we really love our education programs, and they're very unique. So fourth graders who are studying the California history read an abridged version of 2 Years Before the Mast by Richard Henry Dana, whose first stop when he did that voyage back in the 1830s was here in Santa Barbara. So he talks a lot about Santa Barbara in that book. And then they come in and tour the museum, and then spend the night on the tall ship living the life of an 1830s sailor. And it's a hands-on experience. They do night watch for 2 hours. They cook dinner and breakfast for themselves. They bring a big barrel of water onto the deck. They go out on a little dinghy and collect hides and tallow that the crew has hidden in the harbor. And if you want a lesson in patience, try to get 6 fourth graders to row a boat together. So that's a great program. It fits in with the California state standards. And then also now we're doing a marine science program with one of our local fishing boats, the Stardust, where a little bit older kids, so some fourth graders, but all the way up to 7th, 8th, 9th grade, and they actually go out on the water and see our marine life hands-on. So we've had kids, we had a teacher from Cleveland School who said one of her fourth graders had never been south of Trader Joe's. Okay. So never been to the ocean, never seen the ocean. Right. Now these kids are out on the ocean. They're seeing dolphins, seals, sea lions, everything right up close. You know, the scariest part is keeping them 2 feet on, teaching them 2 feet on the deck at all times. Because they love this stuff. And then the crew puts a trap out in the water and collects some sea life that they put back afterwards. Right. But kids get to touch and feel all this stuff, and they look at zooplankton and phytoplankton in a microscope, and they learn why that's important to the base of the food web, and how each species connects to the food web, and what happens when you lose one species, how it affects the other. And they even put mud from the ocean floor on their face and feel that dry on their skin. And it's a great, great fun program.
Well, when I look around here, you know, obviously the lighthouse lamp is really important. I'm looking at some surfboards that probably our viewers can't see, and that's a new and big exhibit.
Sure, and surfing has such a big history in Santa Barbara. You know, you have Rennie Yater, who's considered the artist of surfboard making. You have Al Merrick, whose Channel Islands surfboards are used by all the top-notch surfers. Kim Merrick, 84 world champion. Tom Curran, 3-time world champion, considered like the first rock star of surfing. You have George Greeno, who's the first to curve a fin on a surfboard, major filmmaker, very innovative, first one to film surfers from the water, you know. You have Bruce Brown in Endless Summer, filmed, you know, he's from here, so a big, and then Zog Sexwax, and Zog's been a great friend of the Maritime Museum, so it's a rich surfing history.
Well, you were telling me before we started filming that there's an exhibit up there about a particular disaster in the 1920s that the museum kind of crafted into a film.
Yeah, we have a 14-minute film as part of that exhibit now. It's called Tragedy at Honda, and it's about the 14 Navy destroyers who were traveling from San Francisco to San Diego in 1923. They wanted to cut through the channel, which mostly they did at that time, and they turned too soon. So 7 of those destroyers crashed on the rocks. We lost 23 sailors that night. Major tragedy in our U.S. Navy history. The largest loss of ships during peacetime in U.S. history, and just a big tragedy and a big embarrassment for the Navy, to be honest. But it tells the story that we were able to interview the last living survivor of that tragedy. He was 16 when that happened. Wow. He's passed away now, but we got to talk to him. We talked to a telegraph operator out of San Francisco who came down the next day and helped with the rescue. Talk about understatements of the age. His first message from one of the ships was, "The squadron is in trouble." No kidding. And it has still has to this day a connection to our community. So one of my board members, George Ryder, his grandfather was commanding officer of one of those 14 destroyers, not one that sank, but the Navy had sent him to Georgetown Law School. They made him the judge advocate in both the Court of Inquiry and the court martial. Never happened today, but it happened back then. He had to court martial all his buddies that he went to the academy with. Another one of my docents, Jim McClure, his wife's grandfather, commanding officer the Young, and that was one of the destroyers that lost 20 of those 23 sailors. They had a hole ripped from the bow to stern, and that ship was on its side in 90 seconds. So, wow. So he, a close connection to our community. And then Keith Martino, his family owned the Moore Mercantile Store up in Lompoc, and they donated quilts and blankets that day. And then Harris Seed, local lawyer, his distant cousin Walter was commanding officer of another one of those ships that sank.
When people are watching this and they're like, well, the place looks pretty neat, I'd like to help out. What's the simplest thing that they can do?
Well, we appreciate membership, become a member of the museum, support it. Donations, of course. We are a nonprofit. We're dependent on the local community for support. Any museum, you get a small percentage of our income from admissions. It's really donations and membership support. And you also can volunteer here. We have a 98-year-old sport fishing yacht out front that is all volunteer run. We have the 4th floor visitor center, which if you have not been up on the 4th floor, it is, no disrespect to the courthouse tower, which is wonderful, but I think this view is even better because you watch everything that's going on in the harbor, and then you can see out to the islands. It's just amazing. So that's open every day, and we have volunteers up there. We have volunteers and docents we use for the Spirit overnight program and the marine science program. So there's lots of ways to become involved with the Maritime Museum.
And it's good to know that there's also a lot of visitors coming through from, we're a tourist destination, but you said 25?
We get between 20 to 25,000 visitors a year. Certainly the summertime is very busy for us. The 4th floor visitor center gets about 100 a day in the summertime. We just had a group of 25 kids from the Santa Barbara Sailing Center who it was a little rough water out there today, so instead of endangering the kids, they were very smart and brought them in here, which we love having all the kids through the museum.
Well, it's been a great pleasure to talk with you, Greg. Thanks so much for having us here.
Thank you. Pleasure to have you here.
And thanks again to our 3 great guests today: Rich Block of the Santa Barbara Zoo, Geoff Green of the Santa Barbara City College Foundation, and Greg Gorga of the Santa Barbara Maritime Museum. I'm David Starkey. This is Santa Barbara, and thanks for watching.